You already know what it feels like when a relationship starts to quietly fall apart. Not with a big dramatic fight, not with some obvious moment you can point to, just this slow, creeping distance that grows between two people who used to feel completely connected. You reach out and it feels hollow. You sit in the same room and feel completely alone. That feeling is one of the most painful things a human being can experience, and if you're here right now, there's a part of you that's desperate to fix it before it gets any worse. Here's what nobody tells you. The gap between a relationship that feels distant and a relationship that feels deeply connected is not as enormous as you think. It's not years of therapy, it's not grand romantic gestures, it's not long, difficult conversations that drain you emotionally. Research in relationship psychology has shown over and over again that emotional bonds are built and strengthened through tiny, consistent, intentional moments, small actions. And once you understand which actions actually work, everything changes faster than you'd expect. Before we go any deeper into exactly what those actions are, we have related programs linked down below in the video description that go far beyond what we can cover here. If you're someone who knows that information alone isn't enough, and that you actually need real guidance and structure to create lasting change in your relationships, I'd encourage you to look at those now rather than waiting. Most people wait too long, and by the time they feel truly ready, the window has already passed. Now let's talk about what's actually happening beneath the surface of a disconnected relationship, because this is where it gets painfully real. When emotional distance builds between two people, the invisible damage that happens isn't just emotional, it's physical. Studies have found that people in disconnected or low-quality relationships experience higher levels of cortisol, the stress hormone, on a daily basis. That chronic stress accelerates aging, weakens the immune system, disrupts sleep, and degrades your overall mental health. Loneliness inside a relationship is actually more damaging than being completely alone, because at least when you're alone, you know why you feel that way. When you're with someone and still feel invisible, that confusion eats at you in ways that are almost impossible to describe. You stop saying what you really feel because you expect it won't land the way you need it to. You pull back to protect yourself. They pull back too, maybe for the same reason. And suddenly there's this invisible wall between two people who both actually want the same thing, but neither one knows how to break through it. That is the cost of inaction, and it compounds every single day you don't address it. Now here is where everything starts to shift. Pattern interrupt. Stop thinking that reconnection requires perfection. It doesn't. It requires presence. The first small action that has an enormous impact on emotional bonds is something called micro-attunement. This is the practice of genuinely noticing the emotional state of the person in front of you in small daily moments and acknowledging it without trying to fix it. When someone feels truly seen, not fixed, not lectured to, just seen, something inside them relaxes at a neurological level. Their nervous system actually shifts. The wall comes down just a little, and you did that in under 30 seconds. The second action is deliberate physical contact that is not tied to romance or obligation. A hand on the shoulder when someone walks past. A brief hug that lasts 2 seconds longer than usual. Research on the neuroscience of touch shows that non-sexual, non-transactional physical contact triggers oxytocin release, which is the bonding hormone that creates feelings of trust and safety. This doesn't take effort, it doesn't take time, it takes intention. Third, and this one surprises almost everyone, is the power of asking one genuinely curious question per day. Not a surface question like "How was your day?" A real question that shows you are thinking about them specifically, something that proves you've been paying attention to their inner world. The emotional impact of this is disproportionately large. In relationship studies, partners who felt their inner world was consistently curious about reported up to 60% higher satisfaction in their relationship over time. One question, that's the investment. The return is immeasurable. Pattern interrupt. Think about the last time someone asked you something that made you feel like they really wanted to know the answer. Remember how that felt. That feeling is what you can give someone starting today. Fourth action is protecting shared time from distraction without making a big announcement about it. The simple act of putting your phone face down, of being fully present for even 20 minutes, communicates something that words cannot. It says you matter more to me right now than everything else competing for my attention. In a world that is screaming for everyone's attention constantly, choosing someone with your full presence is one of the most powerful emotional statements you can make without saying a word. Fifth is what researchers call positive sentiment override. This is the habit of actively choosing to interpret neutral or ambiguous behavior from someone you care about in the most generous possible way. When they go quiet, instead of assuming they're pulling away from you, you assume they're just tired. This isn't naivety, it's a practice skill that the healthiest relationships in longitudinal studies consistently demonstrate. And here's the extraordinary part. When you extend this kind of grace to someone, they unconsciously begin to extend it back to you. The relationship dynamic shifts without a single conversation about shifting it. Now let's pause here because this is important. Everything I've described so far requires almost no time. Most of these actions take under a minute. The reason most people don't do them isn't because they're too busy. It's because they haven't been shown how to make them feel natural, consistent, and genuinely impactful. That's the difference between knowing information and actually integrating it into the way you show up in your relationships. Pattern interrupt. The people who experience the deepest, most fulfilling emotional connections are not the ones who love harder. They're the ones who understand connection better. The sixth action is verbal appreciation that is specific and unexpected. Not a general thank you. A specific acknowledgement of something the person does that you notice and value. This triggers what psychologists call felt significance, the sense that what you contribute actually matters to someone. In couples studied over decades, the ones with the strongest emotional bonds averaged 5 specific positive acknowledgments for every 1 moment of tension or criticism. 5-to-1. That ratio changes everything. Seventh is the practice of repair, quickly. When there is friction, when something gets said wrong or a moment goes sideways, the time it takes you to acknowledge it and soften the interaction is directly proportional to how much emotional safety exists in the relationship. The longer friction is left unaddressed, the deeper it calcifies into resentment. A simple "I know that came out wrong, I'm sorry," said genuinely, rebuilds more trust in 30 seconds than weeks of good behavior. Pattern interrupt. This is what separates relationships that endure from relationships that quietly erode. Not the absence of friction, but the speed and sincerity of repair. There is something profound happening when you start applying even 2 or 3 of these actions consistently. The energy in the relationship changes. You start to feel more connected not just to the other person but to yourself, to your own capacity for love and depth and presence. And that feeling becomes self-reinforcing. Connection creates more desire for connection. Understanding creates more openness. Safety creates more honesty. The upward spiral, once it starts, is genuinely powerful. People who have transformed their relationships using these principles describe it as waking up inside something they thought was already over. They describe it as remembering why they chose this person in the first place. They describe it as getting back something they didn't even realize they had lost until they had it again. If any part of this resonated with you, if you felt that ache of recognition at any point in this video, then you already know something most people spend years denying: that doing nothing is not neutral. Inaction has a cost, and the cost compounds. The related programs linked in the video description below were created for exactly this moment. Not for people who are curious, for people who are ready. The ones who feel the urgency of what's at stake and understand that real transformation doesn't come from more scrolling or more hoping. It comes from real guidance applied with intention. Most people will watch this and move on. But you're not most people, which is exactly why those programs exist for the rare few who actually show up for their relationships.